understand there's a lot of confusion regarding the vegan diet versus the carnivore diet. This is a really emotionally charged topic. A lot of people have a lot of emotions invested in this. Which one's a better diet? The vegan diet, the carnivore diet, you know, vegetarian, pescatarian, etc., etc. But vegan versus carnivore. The bottom line is carnivore diet is gonna get you more shredded, but there's more to it than that. The reason I say that is there's two main factors when it comes to losing weight. The first is you have to be in a caloric deficit. That's number one. And that means you have to take in less calories than your body needs or uses per day. So for example, your body uses 2,000 calories per day. You wanna take in 1,500 calories or 1,700 calories. You want to create a deficit. That you're using more energy than you're putting into your body. And we measure energy with calories. But there's more to it than that. And the second factor to losing weight is the insulin response. Every time you ingest sugar of any form, fructose, glucose, lactose, your body releases insulin. What insulin does is I'm not a scientist, so I may be botching this, but as I understand it, what insulin does is it takes the sugar and first it restores your glycogen stores, which is energy that's stored in your muscles and other glycogen stores in your body. And second, any excess glycogen is stored as fat. All fat is energy for us to use at a later point in time. We developed this through evolution when food was scarce. We were like bears. We would eat a lot. We'd put on a lot of fat so that we could make it through a long, cold winter. But now we have such easy access to all this food that bodily response that we developed, it's no longer really serving us. So we just keep consuming food, and all the excess calories get stored as fat. With the insulin response is that what causes this insulin response is any type of sugar: glucose, fructose, lactose. You find sugars in fruits, in vegetables, in breads, rice, carbohydrates, beans, those types of foods, even nuts. Carnivore diet with meats, you don't have too much of an insulin response. Yes, yes, protein will cause an insulin response, but not as rapid as carbohydrates. So this is why I say a carnivore diet is better than a vegan diet for losing weight when you measure them side by side, because as a carnivore diet, you're gonna be reducing that insulin response and thus reducing the amount of fat that you store. It gets more complicated than that, because a lot of people say they're vegan, but they're eating crap. They're eating chips, potatoes, white bread, French fries, all type of crap. Pop is vegan, Coca-Cola is vegan, Doritos are vegan. That doesn't mean it's healthy. It's releasing an insulin response, and that insulin response is gonna trigger your body to store the glucose as fat. So you gotta keep that in mind. Even fruits can be dangerous. Bananas, things that are high in sugar, that can trigger your body's insulin response. So you gotta keep your body, your insulin sensitivity in a good range, at a good level. That's basically what it comes down to. Besides that, it really doesn't matter what you do. Whether you go vegan or carnivore, you just gotta stick to those two principles. Number one, if you wanna lose weight, you have to be in a caloric deficit. That's number one. That's the number one law, all right? You can find a lot of calorie calculators online that tell you the amount of calories that you need to consume for your gender, activity level, and body weight composition, height, etc., to put yourself in a caloric deficit. And the second thing is, you have to be mindful of that insulin response. Be mindful of the foods you're eating. They can cause you to store fat. So it's not really about being vegan or about being carnivore for losing weight. It's about eating foods that trigger a very minimal insulin response or none at all, and being in a caloric deficit. If you follow those two things, you can lose weight. I'm telling you, I'm a testimony to that. I eat waffles, I eat all types of stuff. Now there's other ways you can increase your insulin, how you can balance your insulin sensitivity. And one of the methods that I use is intermittent fasting. There's studies done that show that this helps put your insulin sensitivity at a good level. Essentially what I'm saying is when you do eat carbs, simple carbohydrates, they're not immediately going to be stored as fat because your glycogen stores are low. Like I said, I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to quote all the science behind this, but these are the facts. So just be mindful of what you eat, whether you're vegan or carnivore. Both of those are extremes, and I don't recommend either one of those. I recommend a balanced diet. You need protein to build muscle. You need protein to feel satiated, right? But you also need fiber to help clear your digestive system. A lot of times it's not fat that's making us look fat, but it's just all the backed up food that we have inside of us. So you want to incorporate some sort of fiber. I find spinach works well, oatmeal works well, certain fruits can work well too, right? So it's a combination of both. You know, don't subscribe to a dogma and choose one or the other, right? We're human beings. We're meant to eat both. We're meant to thrive. We're meant to survive. We can survive on anything. We can survive. We adapt, right? Lose the mindset that one is right and one is wrong. They can both work, and they should work in conjunction. Ideally, your meal should look like a nice 4 to 6 to 8 ounce, depending on how big you are and your goals. 6 ounce, 5 ounce, 4 ounce serving of meat with a side of vegetables, let's say cooked spinach, and perhaps some legumes like some baked beans, some baked kidney beans, or a little bit of chickpeas. That's like your ideal meal right there. Everything in that meal is gonna give you very minimal insulin response, right? Also, you're lacking the foods that carry a lot of calories, which are usually your empty carbohydrates, your breads, your rice to an extent, quinoa, all that stuff, right? Now, mind you, some carbohydrates are better than others. Rice is better than bread. Quinoa, I think, is better than rice. I'm not sure. But you gotta just be mindful and be aware of foods that trigger a high insulin response. And there's scales online. You want to look at the GI scale, glycemic index scale, and this will give you the measurements of the GI measurements of each food. And this is going to tell you the type of insulin response that food is going to give you. So opt for the healthier choice. Instead of reaching for white bread, probably the best bread you can eat is Ezekiel bread or sprouted grain bread. That's gonna provide a much lower insulin response. There's a debate about brown rice versus white rice, but brown rice is supposed to have a lower insulin response than white rice, but white rice is supposed to be more easily digested. You know, another thing I should say that just came to my head is that you gotta experiment with your body and you gotta find what works for you. We all respond differently to different foods. And this is evident in the fact that certain races of people are lactose intolerant and others are not. You know, so you gotta eat like your ancestors did. You gotta eat for your genetics, you gotta eat for your body type, and you gotta find what works for you. A vegan diet may work for some, or primarily fruits and grains diet may work for some, whereas others thrive on a diet that's more leaning towards the carnivore side. So you gotta figure this out. It's a process, it's a journey, and experiment. Don't be scared to mess up, don't be scared to fail. You know, keep the principles in mind of caloric deficit and insulin response, and you will succeed. This was off the top of the dome. I didn't have no notes. I hope this was helpful. We'll see how it comes out when I edit it. And peace, love, muscle. I wish you all the best. Namaste. Signing out.